Very good. Huh?
Uh, Hi, good evening to all. Where is Vaibhav?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Madhu. I understand yesterday you are so busy, occupied.
Yes, sir. We had a submission yesterday. so couldn't able to join, sir. I
Fine.
was not keeping good.
What happened?
Kind of cold and fever, sir. Weather is not supportive.
But still,
Traveling back.
but still you worked. Okay, it happens sometimes. Good. But now you're fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, we'll go ahead. Actually, Vaibhav was there. Oh, so I think some of you like Madhu and Majid missed yesterday's sessions, but I have not shared the recording. Tonight I'll do it. What I'll suggest is like uh, I'll share some 7 to 8 MCQs, what we discussed yesterday. So please answer them in chat. Okay. It's it's a very basic and simple. Like, okay, if you haven't listened, also I know like Madhu and Majid can answer it. Okay, I'm sharing it. Oh, I think Leela also joined. Okay, I'm going to share the MCQs. Answer them in chat box. I mean in the chat. It's basically on the what, as I said, like what we discussed on the countries that are participating in MDSAP. Yeah, can you see my screen? Yeah, take your time for 5 to 8 minutes. Answer them. They are very simple. Like If you're done, then we'll move. Most of you address, but all of you. Were wrong. Like, yeah, the founding member is Canada. Thought it could be US. But even I also had a lot of doubt of how Canada can come. Okay, I'll stop sharing it. We'll move further. No, just I'll go ahead with recap of what we have discussed yesterday and just in 5 minutes or 10 minutes so that people who are absent yesterday can understand or otherwise you need to listen to the. So we discussed country specific regulations, what are the standards, okay, and what these countries basically specify or basically have a lot of impact in the MD-SAP. Okay. Apart from ISO, country specific, and what are those some of the sections where they ask more or they will have more of an reasoning that has to be done. Okay, and what are the standards basically? So we discussed like say I'll go through it very fast because I already done it yesterday. Later we'll switch on to the auditing mode, MDSAP auditing mode. Then I tell you something very important. Okay. ISO now, MDSAP not only looks at these QMS things like, but it also looks at the specific regulatory requirements. Okay, and that to country specific regulatory requirements which we need to abide with. Okay, I told like USFD, this is the one which I'm going to talk later after discussing about MDSAP auditing approach, NC grading, how need to audit as we have done in as we have discussed with ISO 13485. Okay, this there is some transition happening, but a lot of questions are there like if I am with MDSAP, still I need to do the QMSR. Okay, that is not mandatory. Okay, like first we'll consider will be in the boundary of MDSAP. Later I'll tell you once the 21C of our 820 QSR, okay, combines with or aligns with 13485. Okay, what we need to do. Suppose like there are some companies which have already have MDSAP like Intuitive and other companies. For them, there is no problem because they have already MDSAP, which is aligned with 13485. But for those who don't have MDSAP and they want only market access in US, then this will be very useful. Okay, 13485 you need to align with 21 CFR 820. Okay, and I also told there will be some like 803, 806, 21 CFR 8. These are basically talking on post-marketing events on like adverse event reporting, complaint handling, adverse advisory notices, all that. But the basic structure is 21 CFR 820 quality system regulations. This is what it is going to be transitioning into QMSR. QMSR is quality management system regulations. Okay, this will be happening on February 2nd officially. February 2nd. I don't know why it is on February 2nd, but it's happening on that day in 2026. I mean, in another week or 10 days. Okay, I also told the key expectations. Perhaps I used a very tough word that they will grill you, fry you on design history file. Okay, that is the specialty of US or USFDA. Okay, they'll take a day, full day to on the design and development on chapter 5. I mean, if you look at MDSAP, it's on chapter 5. So it will be, I mean, you need to be very strong on this. Very, as I said, design controls means all from design planning till design transfers and they link up. I told you how MDSAP proceeds. It proceeds from process to process. If they find any NC, it will link to other processes. There will be escalation of NCs. A lot of things happens with MDSAP. And I said it has it your QMS has to be live, updated every day. It's not like 13485 before the audit, you do the documentation Monday before, like how Madhusri has done yesterday, or some of the people like Akanksha was doing that same. Not last minute reporting or last minute documentation. You need to do it, update it continuously. Okay, and there will be a lot of emphasis on complaint handling and MDR reporting. I told you guys, those who are there yesterday also, please remember this too. Okay, on chapter 2 and chapter 5, both are country specific. Chapter 2 on marketing authorization and facility registration, they are specific for all 5 countries. And the chapter 4, it's on adverse event reporting and advisory notices. Okay, this will be very specific for all 5 countries, how you enter into the database, how you report your adverse events, serious adverse events or events, something like. And the timelines for reporting also will be very specific. And that's the reason I said, like I told you the other day, I'll be sharing all the QSPs on these 2 chapters, because for you to, I mean, work out on writing PSPs, it takes a lot of time because all of them are very, very different, specific. First is on reporting system, which database you need to enter and what is the format. And second is, okay, how you categorize the events, what you call an adverse event, serious adverse event, FSC, complaint. So uh, different countries view it in a different way. Okay, we need to understand. First thing is whether we need to report it as a complaint or an adverse event is one thing. If you report it, what you need to do next? What is the follow? Because they do follow. You have seen in Moody, the USFDA side, they do it perfectly. Okay, Udemy is still new. I mean, even I haven't enrolled any adverse event in Udemy till now. Okay, because all the 7 modules in Udemy is for Europe, are active, I think, in December only. All 7 modules, they have different modules. All 7 modules are active, so they are functional now. So you can start experimenting. Just open the Udemy site, see how it looks. Okay. I know you guys are very busy. You are too much occupied with your work. That's still fine, but you can, like a preview of a movie, how we look. Go through that and have a look at this how. Okay. And here in FDA also data integrity and traceability is important. Okay. Uh, Basically I said for implants, the traceability is implant. I said traceability of implant doesn't and at the hospital or after the procedure. Okay, it has to be continued. The procedure has to be continued till 5 years of the patient's lifetime. Okay, I mean that comes under PMA, where you need to work on the clinical follow-up, the traceability of the patient wherever he is, whether he is in Bangalore or is in Ahmedabad or is in Hyderabad, you need to follow up. It's basically we call it as telephonic follow-up. Or if he's in the same city, you can ask him to visit the hospital. Okay, this is another thing which they will be very and Health Canada, I said it is one of the closest to ISO 13485 with few differences, but the differences are very significant, and for them it is mandatory by law. Okay, they have what we call medical device regulations, that is S4 or statutory orders regulations, which is passed through the parliament. So it becomes a law, like how in India we pass the acts in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha and it becomes an act. Okay. Right. And as I said, like for all 5 countries, you need to have a representative, like how in Europe you'll have an authorized representative. Okay, in US we call it, you call him as US authorized representative, but in Canada you call him as the license holder. Okay, he will be held responsible for anything. In Australia, it is called Therapeutic Goods Administration, or it is linked to conformity assessment. We discussed a lot on what conformity assessment is, like what are your technical specifications, what are your test reports, and what are your standards that you followed, okay, to do these tests. Or it could be any standard, but it's preferred that you take up the global standards, okay, not the standards which are more relevant to your country, or you can pick up pharmacopoeias also, but better to avoid them because pharmacopoeias are not global standards. Some pharmacopoeias, I mean, some in pharmacopoeias are very specific to countries, but still you can use it. But what I suggest is that you need to have conformity assessment with the standards which TGA mentions. Okay. As we see it in Europe also, conformity assessment is very, very important. And the other thing which I told, okay, it is a sponsor responsibility. Okay. In Australia, see here we call it as a license holder because there will be different terminology used. Here it is called as a sponsor, whom we give all the responsibilities to handle our market or our devices in Australia. And the regulations or therapeutic goods regulations 2022, I said it's a old standard, but a lot of changes happened, amendments have been added. So it is totally managed by the sponsor, where we'll have an agreement. Manufacturer and the sponsor will have an agreement that is going to take care of everything that's happening in Australia. So and here you need to remember that it is more a evidence-based conformity assessment. What I told is it's more like evidence. You need to show a lot of evidence in the form of clinical reports or clinical trials or clinical investigations or registries or case studies. These all will give, like in US FDA also there is PMA, pre-market approval, where they ask a lot of clinical data. I mean, it's evidence-based. It's not like I do some predicate analysis without literature search, and I construct my clinical evaluation report and say that I'm the same, I'm equal, I'm brother of the predicate or the twin of the predicate, we look the same. That is not accepted. Even in UMDR also, now it is not accepted. In MDT, it was accepted. With the new regulations, you need to have your own clinical data. Okay, don't depend upon your neighbor or somebody that I'll show his clinical data, because we are technically everything biologically, clinical is equivalent. UMDR also asks at least you do some retrospective clinical trials because your device is already used in the markets. Okay, do some retrospective, like if it is already used, collect some data from them. Okay, it's always good to do a prospective registry or a prospective PMCF. Okay, and this is very, very critical in UMDR and it's also important in Australia. You need to show a lot of clinical evidence. And I told you one which is not there. When I had conversation with some of the auditors, like they said, they'll be very, very particular about the microbiological issues, sterility, bioburden, and all that stuff. And I told you the reason behind it, because they are very, very, very I mean stringent on the microbes, antimicrobial resistant, nosocomial infections. Australia is such a different country. I was there once for a short time. It's a very different country. They look at something which we don't consider. We think everything is, for us, everything is such a normal. We take antibiotics over the counter. But for them, also in a lot of other countries, it's what we call schedule M drug. We need to have a doctor prescription for that. So they will be very careful related the microbial related things that I have not added here because it's through my experience I understood when I discussed with some auditors. Brazil is NVISA, regulatory body is NVISA, but they do it through RDC. Okay. RDC is resolution of the collegiate board, and this is in Portuguese. Brazilian speaks Portuguese. So this is a old one, 2013 one, their QMS. This is the new QMS they got in 2022. Okay, and what those who are present, can you tell what Brazil basically stress more? You're there, Aman, you're there. Who are there? What is that Brazil stress more? I said US talks gives a lot of importance on design controls. Okay, adverse events, advisory notices, every country gives importance because that's very key, except India. Except India. Again, I'm talking to India like this is not good in India, what is happening on reporting systems. But all countries do this stuff on whenever there is some problem because in healthcare sector this is very important, whether it's in pharma or in devices. When you find some adverse events because of some devices or drugs, you need to immediately report it to the regulatory authorities so that they'll be conscious of it and they may take action on it. Okay, every country does that. All MDSAP countries does that. Okay, but I'm talking about, say, in Australia, told like there will be more emphasis on conformity assessment, evidence-based conformity. Okay, in Brazil, what I told yesterday, what is that?
It is management responsibility or
Yeah, management responsibility is that has to be legally bound because if anything happens, it's there in most of the countries. The management will be legally bound if any adverse events happen, though there will be some device insurance. But I told you, Anvisa, sorry, RDC or Brazil or the regulatory body is Anvisa. The QMS is RDC. Okay. They will have a lot of importance on the risk. Okay. They give a lot of importance on the risk, whether it's your QMS, they start from even from your scope, all the clause, and they have additional clause on the risk, not only 14971. Okay, they give importance like risk in PMS or risk everywhere. So risk management is such a key thing in Anvisa or in Brazil. Like how we see such a key thing of clinical evidence and microbiology things in Australia. Okay, designs DHF or design fine in US. So every country, if you look at the spikes, what they are exactly, I mean, talking more or impressing more. Once you face one audit, you will understand. Like because since I faced 3 audits, I faced 2 audits. For 2, I was the consultant. Okay. So I know like what they'll be looking at. And I also told in detail how they link the process, risks in the processes from one to the other process. I think yesterday we discussed in detail from the supplier material to the PMS or to the complaint, how they can link up. Okay. And we also discuss what is systemic risk, and it becomes systemic. It's totally that your PMS is under collapse. Okay, your total process under collapse when there is a systemic risk. So that is what Anvisa thinks. It's more like India, but their regulations are very strict. Okay, Japan, we discussed its PMDA. Just like in India also earlier we have this where medical devices were under pharmaceuticals. Now we got it separately. Okay, Ministry of Health and Labor Welfare. That ministry controls the policies. Okay, but the QMS is Ministerial Ordinance 169. And I also told you like after Canada, which is close to ISO 13485, the next country that is very close to 13485 is Japan. You don't find much differences. There will be few, but not significant. Like how you find with US or how you find with Australia or how you find with Brazil. Canada and Japan sit close, okay, like very close neighbors, brotherhood. Brotherhood is a different language. I should not use that word. Brotherhood, it's there in West Asia or the countries. Okay, it's through ministerial. This is their QMS, which I have already shared. And they work, their representative is Ministry. Yesterday also I forgot it. I mean, suddenly I remember, I forgot it. After the class, I remember. After this, it's marketing authorization holder. Okay, where in Canada we seen like he is the license holder. It is here marketing authorization holder will take total responsibilities of the manufacturer. Okay, both are liable. It's not that only this guy sitting there in Japan will do anything. Needs to correspond with the manufacturer and both will. But the representative, their image there in Japan will have a direct communication with the regulatory bodies. Okay, in the Japan, whether it's PMDA or Ministry of Health and Labor Welfare, they will take the responsibility. Okay. But I said entering Japan, I mean, marketing devices in Japan is very difficult. And the second difficult area is Australia. You can do it in Brazil, Canada, and US. And this is something until you have a confident person who knows the regulations very well, okay, in Japan, then only you can enter. I also told they won't accept any procedural deviation in the procedures. A small deviation is see in India in basically not in India in ISO 13485 we allow some small deviations in the SOPs or procedures. However, we don't take it seriously. We call it an observation or OFI, opportunity for improvement, or we call it a minor NC. But here it is totally taken. Procedural deviation is considered as total failure of the system or the quality failure. Okay, and I told the importance of why they take things so seriously in Japan. I quoted an example on Six Sigma also. Their failure rates will be very low. That's what Six Sigma, 1 in 10 millions is Six Sigma. I told this comparative assessment. I'll share this with you on clause mapping, how they do management for each country, how they look at management. Management is taken seriously in all 5 countries, like uh, the chapter 1 on management, which I said it will be a very serious discussion with the management. Any systemic failure that happens in the organization. Okay, one is the systemic failure in the organization, and the second is the legal binding or legal accountability of that. Okay, I'll share this. You can go through how it is relevant to ISO 13485, the product regulation, all that stuff. Okay, though I stressed on some important points, most of them look similar. I mean, bottom line, what I would like to say is 2 chapters which will be entirely different, chapter 2 and chapter 4. And the most important thing is chapter 1 is very important. And I mean, when you compare it with ISO, that is the management has to take the full responsibility. Okay. And the most different thing you find is the audit approach. It's not similar like how we do for ISO. Okay, how the audit approach will be, how they do the NC grading, and what is the risk when the NCs escalate. Okay, that's the grading of NCs. And also on the 24/7 surveillance system. They have surveillance 24/7. They may ask anytime surprise audits, special audits. Okay, like you see in pharma, I have a lot of colleagues in pharma. They talk of this surprise or sudden audits where we raise these warning letters, red flags. Okay, if they are USFDA approved pharma products. So we'll go through the audit approach in MDSAP. See, one more thing I want you is once we complete MDSAP, okay, after completing the audit approach section, if you want a participation certificate in MDSAP training, okay, like on MDSAP training, we have listened to almost like 8 to 10 hours. So that participation certificate I can provide, not a competency certificate, but a participation certificate that you were there in the MDSAP training, you participated in the MDSAP training. Okay. Anybody wants that certificate, participation certificate in MDSAP training from Salvation Global, I can provide it to you. But you need to, I mean, already you have answered a lot of yesterday and today and the other day. You answered some of the queries. So will check out. Generally for participation certificate, there is no need for the examination to be conducted. If you are present, attendance is that important. So since you guys whom I see regularly, okay, Aman, Arulmati, Leela, Madhu, actually Somnath used to present, Vaibhav is regular, Madhu is, of course, he was on leave for last 1 week. You guys are regularly present. I know I can give you participation certificate for that without the exam. Okay. For somebody asked me like, we need to have MDSAP audit. Okay, like separate certificate for MDSAP auditing. Yes, you need to have a separate certificate for MDSAP auditing. Okay. Maybe after completion of the course, we'll see. Since you are already trained in MDSAP, you understand the crux of the MDSAP. Okay. Maybe if you have another 1 day or maybe like 3 sessions or 4 sessions, another 6 hours or 8 hours. Okay. I can give you the auditing competency in auditing for MDSAP also. Okay. However, we'll first see like how the audit approach will be, because you already understood for the audit criteria and all that stuff for ISO. This you can understand it easily and much better, and we'll see what is the difference in the auditing approach between these two. And it's pretty well, I mean, it's a common sense, like there in ISO, you are looking at one standard. In MDSAP, you are looking at 5 QMS and also plus 1348. So it's like you are auditing 6 QMS. So you need to think like, think in 5 different ways. Okay. Or same brain, 5 different ways of, 5 different uh, approaches of auditing. I think that may not be the right word. Not different approaches, but the mindset to audit 5 different QMS. See, ISO is very simple. Like you can have that checklist and all that stuff. You can link up, or you'll basically you departmentalize or segregate into a process, into particular processes like design and development done, this is done, purchasing is done, stores is done, production is done. But MDSAP, that's more compartmentalized. MDSAP is a bit different. I'm coming to it. That's half an hour. Yeah, next 45 minutes. Then I'll switch to that one on aligning 21 CFR with IS. See, the basic difference when we look at the overview of it. As I said, you have 5 countries plus ISO, and you are pretty clear as I know, you have 5 countries with specific regulations. Okay, and I also told you there will be some countries are very close, like Australia, sorry, Japan and Canada are very close to ISO. Not a big thing to worry about this too, but let's also see what is that small difference. But for US, Australia, and Japan, okay, there will be some which will be significantly different from ISO. Okay, which I talked a few, like US or 20th century, they are more focused on design controls, design history file. And I'm telling you, like I told you yesterday, the audit will be like 5.5 days with 2 auditors. So it will be like 11 man days. If you have 2 auditors, 5.5, it is 11 man days. So there are 7 chapters. Okay, 1 day for total management. Okay, 1 day for design and development. Okay, and I'm talking about 2 audits. Okay, 1 day for production. They take half day for purchasing. Okay, and half day for chapter 2 and chapter 4. Adverse event reporting and facility registration, advisory notices. These 2 chapters are very small. They take half day. And management, they take full day. And other half day, as said, you find it very different. They will exclusively audit if you have a microbiology lab. They will exclusively audit for 4-5 hours your microbiology lab. Okay, and I think I told you yesterday that they won't just look at your reports of the SOPs or the processes, how you are doing. Okay, they look even if you say it is sterile. Okay, they want to have an evidence how that is sterile. Okay, what is the basic, how much is the microbial or the bioburden load on it before you sterilize it? After sterilizing it, what is the endotoxin load? Okay, and I told you if you find there will be lots of things like growth promotion tests, and importantly, mainly in the clean rooms when you are doing the microbial clean room validations and the microbial testing or the bioburden testing in the clean rooms or on the devices. Okay, it's not like you say it has a bioburden of so and so, and we'll say that the bioburden is less, so it passed. Because you have some, I don't remember the limits of bioburden or devices. It depends upon the surface area on the total device. In the clean rooms also, where you do air handling or how you collect the organisms is different. You may use a settling plate or air sampling. But the point what I'm trying to say, though you say that my bioburden is less as per the standards or your SOP, say that this pass. But still they ask you what is the count of the bioburden. And importantly, I said they'll ask you to identify the organisms, okay, in your clean room or on the device. What are the organisms you need to characterize? I mean, that you need to name the organisms. So you need to characterize them. So characterization of the microbes is also very important in MDSER. In ISO, we don't look at it, we'll say, okay, some bioburden, after sterilization, it came down. Endotoxin, it came down within limits, 20 CFU colonies, CFU or some colony forming units. For endotoxin, it's international units like. But here they go so in depth, they ask you even what are the microbes that are there? What are the organisms? How you have characterized that these are the microbes? Okay, because they'll be very particular on some of the microorganisms or the viruses or some bacteria, because it could be contagious, it could spread within the clean rooms, or it could spread from device to device. Okay, and yesterday I also talked about the infections caused by the devices in the whole hospital. So what we call them? Can somebody tell what we call them? Hospital-linked infections are called as nosocomial infection. Okay, nosocomial infections are hospital-related infections because of there will be a lot of, areas where the infection may arise. Okay, it could be also possibly from your device. There could be some organisms which have, we are worried about organisms which have high antigenicity. Okay. You understand when I say antigenicity, all these words we are very much aware during the COVID time. Okay, antigenicity, and they can spread very easily. So, and the second thing is on, I told you on antibiotic resistance. Of course, I told many a times, not the first time. We are resistance, or mainly I'm more worried about us than the kids or the children who are resistant to almost all antibiotics. Major category of antibiotics, they are resistant now. So you need to go through higher antibiotics, powerful antibiotics, which obviously have a lot of toxicity. Okay. So here, unlike ISO 13485, okay, unlike 13485 alone, MDSAP grading directly reflects regulatory risk also, not just the procedural graph. So what is the basic here? Of course, in ISO also there will be a lot of things that are linked to regulatory, but here explicitly they look at your QMS or the MDSAP. Okay, if there are any non-compliance, they look at the regulatory risk in the sense how it is going to affect the patient. Okay, I'm trying to make you understand, like you link anything, you talk of your purchases, you talk of your production, you talk of your design and development, and everything will be linked to the regulatory risk. That is, they may link up their regulations with it. Like the typical example is what we are talking of, what we have worked or what we understood about EUMDR. Okay, EUMDR also has the system of connecting the QMS, that is ENISO, where a lot of the regulations in EUMDR are part of your QMS. Okay. Yesterday I discussed 25 or some more, I don't know. There are some changes that are happening now in EUMDR also. They may add more or decrease. Or 24 or 25 articles that are in UMDA that has been added to the QMS. Like that, in all these 5 countries, there will be some things that are pertain to the regulatory aspects. Okay. Of course, most of them addressing patient safety only on your PMS or your complaint handling. Okay, or the trends that are happening in your uh, occurrence of the complaints and your if it is a medical equipment or diagnostic equipment, what are the maintenance issues? Okay, false positive results, accuracy, precisions. Okay, there are a lot of things we need to look in medical diagnostics. I'll discuss in SOMED. When I discuss SOMED, I'll tell you that's on the clinical validation we call. Okay. And also on the patient safety and the risk, the patterns, how it is coming and the reporting system. They'll be very, very, very particular about the reporting system. Okay, again, I'm repeating. If your company has an MD sub, you should be very, very particular. I know one Madhu's company has this MD sub. I know they will be doing all this because they are medical equipment. I know like they'll be reporting all field safety corrective actions or maintenance or servicing activities. They'll also have pattern of what are the most important components that are have more wear and tear that may go wrong, and why there will be more frequency of servicing those parts, and what is the maintenance issues. Okay, if these some of these parts go wrong because of wear and tear or multiple use or user errors, mainly in medical equipment, you'll have more need to think on usability engineering. Okay, a human device interface. So that will be very, very critically linked. Okay, as I explain, you will understand that will be critically linked, and you suddenly see that in ISO I am doing so great. In MDSAP, suddenly I fall into a major critical non-NC, and there is chance that you may lose your certification. Okay. So this approach is very different. That's what I said. They are all totally linked to the your QMS is linked to the regulatory country specific regulation and what is the regulatory risk. Okay, they don't look at the procedure, what is the gaps. For them, SOPs and procedures are not. Okay, so let's focus on these four things. What is the gravity, or how much gravity they look at the QMS, and what is that which is, that is different from IS4. Okay, the grading system is designed to assess severity and regulatory impact of non-conformities. Okay, in IS4 you don't see this so seriously. We also look into it, but we don't give much importance to the severity of non-conformities. We say it is a non-conformance. Okay, it is a minor or major or just an observation. If it is just superficial or one minor error, we say it's OFI or. But you need to link it to the risk. What is the risk of that non-conformity? Okay, if it has happened in design and development, it has a direct impact. Okay, if it happened in production, if it happened in purchase, what is the impact? If there is an NC that comes out in management, what is the impact on the risk or the safety of the device? So it is directly linked to the regulatory impact, all NCs. See, your NCs are not graded on your SOPs or procedures and all that stuff. Okay, if they find any gaps or NCs that are linked, your documentation may be good, but here more than documentation, it is the implementation of it and more exclusive evidence-based, objective evidence they look at. Okay. And this is a continuation of the first one. It is prioritize patient safety and product effectiveness. Okay, this is what I said, like the link it to the product safety. All your NCs or the QMS process where you are weak or your gray zones are there, or you may be low, not strong in that particular area. How it is going to impact the patient. That is they directly connect to the patient. No, no in between discussion. Okay, no consensus. You don't need a third person to mediate between the auditor and the employee. They will directly say this is having risk and it's going to affect the patient. Just measure or they keep escalating the answers. Okay, drive timely and risk proportionate corrective action. This again I tell because they have this system of, they are habituated to the system of reporting their adverse events. Okay, are providing advisory notices. That is in chapter 4. They once you say that you have reported an adverse event, they further follow up on that. It could be a complaint. Complaint could be an adverse event XYZ, ये वो कुछ भी है. Well, yeah, but how timely you have done it, whether it has propagated to other, and most importantly, I have to tell you, I think we have discussed this. Madhu knows this. She is good in verification of effectiveness of a kappa. Because when you have done a kappa, you have done, there is a complaint, you have done the root cause, you have worked on the kappa and you closed it, close the complaint, you check the verification of effectiveness. Okay, you have done what is all required. But again, the same complaint comes out. Okay, same complaint, same nature of the complaint comes out. Which means, okay, you would have addressed a part of the root cause, but not all the roots. Okay, whether you take Wi-Fi or fishbone or the tree model or any model, you have not totally addressed the complaint. You have addressed a part of it, which may be insignificant. That is why there is a reoccurrence of it. And I am telling you guys, in MDSAP, reoccurrence of the similar complaint or the same complaint is taken very seriously. And that is escalated, it will be escalated so much, which means you are very ineffective in addressing the complaint. Okay, that's why in MNCs you see they have a separate team which works on this. Okay, they handle the complaints in such a in-depth manner, like how we do it, how the CBI or NIA does. Okay, in India, like I mean, that are for security. I mean, it has to be dealt in such a level. They have complaint specialists, complaint handling specialist team. Okay, exclusive teams for addressing these complaints. Okay, it's not like the QA or somebody in the QA will do it. You need to have special training, special understanding, okay, on each and everything from the root cause. Okay, if you need to understand the root cause, you should be an expert on the product or on the device. Okay, it's not that somebody from one division who is working in, say, some division on or some device can understand the root cause of the other device. Overall, he can tell you, okay, structurally, he can tell you what could be the root cause. It could be a manufacturing error, it's a material error, or this error, that error. But really understanding, because you need to understand a lot of process that the device undergoes. Okay, the material undergoes, the machinery, the validation it undergoes, and the human device interaction, usability. Okay, we call human device HAI interaction, usability engineering is very key. Okay, the pattern I think I told you yesterday, put it today, like how you devices parameters are lying on the mean. They're so scattered. Okay, there are so many outliers, but still the devices could be within the specification, but your data is so scattered that they are at the verge of the or on the borderline of the failure. because your specification says this can be accepted, you accept it. But the threshold where they are lying, I'm telling you, there is a high likelihood or high probability that this device is going to fail. Anybody in medical devices who understand bit of statistics can tell which devices are going to fail. Tell me any device, give me data, I'll tell you what devices are going to fail. I won't use any ML or such. I just look at your devices. Just I use a linear regression and I see how the data is lying, how it is close to the best fit line, or whether it is scattered. If there is any outlier, obviously you'll reject it. Okay, but within the range, still there is too much spread. That is a very bad thing. Okay, they need to be very close. This is what I mean. By default, I told is they look at this data also. In MDS app, they look at this data, how you were, could be the QC data or could be any data, how your data is scattered, what is your range or mean and SD, and how the data is scattered, which talks about the consistency that is required. Okay. We don't use this word consistency, continual improvements. It is there, but we won't use in ISO. So the consistency of the product is very critical. Because I mean, this is quite important as a very smart person, you don't worry about the pieces that are accepted under QC, finished product QC and all that stuff. Okay. But you look at the products or the devices which are rejected. Why they got rejected? Okay, because there is no consistency in your processes. Okay, this is what look that comes much later in the discussion, but I already discussed it. Timely, okay, enable consistent. Yeah, this is what consistent enforcements across jurisdictions. Okay, in all 5 jurisdictions, you need to have consistent enforcement of the regulations or the standard across all jurisdictions. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Suppose when it fails, when you have an NC in particular jurisdiction, it means that you have failed in all jurisdictions. Suppose I fail in say adverse reporting or on the microbiological aspects in Australia. Okay. Because they are country specific. Does it mean that I also failed in other jurisdictions like in US? Okay, it's not necessary. They look at only at the Australian guidelines, TGA, and they check out what is the specifications for that guidelines. Like I said, adverse event reporting may be 15 days, advisory notice may be 30 days. But some US, it could be 2 days, 3 days. So that's where, that's what I told you in the beginning of MDSM. There are a lot of advantages. Parallelly, we have, I don't say disadvantages, something which we have to be very vigilant. Yeah, I mean, should be on the toes. Okay, not too much relaxed. Okay, basic NC grading generally like ISO, they'll also have minor and major. Okay, on the severity of grading, minor and major, that's what we have seen in ISO, like limited impact, isolated lapses. Okay, it's very isolated to compartmentalize to one department. Very simple one, which may not have impact, direct impact on the product safety or may not cause much risk. Limited in, it's minor. Major we discussed like Okay, systemic failure or regulatory non-compliance. This is what you need to underline. That is very different from IS4. Like systemic failure obviously will lead to, I mean, we discussed a lot of times. Systemic failure is when there is a non-compliance somewhere. Okay, this non-compliance spreads because whether it's IS4 or MDSAP, they are all process linked. There is a linkage of process. So look at one process, you have an NC, and NC is so deep. Okay. What happens is it spreads through other processes. The risk that has arisen from that NC slowly spreads through other processes, knowingly, unknowingly. Okay. Because we may not have we are not sure of the risk controls, how the risk is spreading. If you have risk control, good that we can stop it at some point. But if you are lacking risk controls for that particular risk which arose from a particular process or in a department and that spreads, okay, unnoticingly from the carpet and all across the processes, it will become systemic. When I say systemic, all the risk called like total virus is spread throughout your company. It's contagious, it has spread, and when it is contagious, it has spread. What happens? The system will collapse. You will collapse. You need to be quarantined, or you need to be admitted in hospital, or you need to close your company. Okay. So you need to be very careful when there is a systemic failure that affects or spreads through the other processes. You should definitely look at this very seriously. And of course, I mean, it happens. It's not that I'm not saying that there will be some NCs or risks that will arise in some due to different reasons. But the most important thing is what you should contain them at that point with risk controls. What are your risk measures? What are your risk mitigation process at that point before it passes through the other? Okay. And the second, apart from the severity of non-conformity, the regulatory impact. Okay. What is the device safety? This is very important. In MDR, in ISO, we discuss a lot on patient safety, device safety, and all that. But the important thing, MDSAP looks also on the other side of the coin or other side of the screen is like whether it is also affecting the performance. Okay. Safety is one issue that is very seriously have to be dealt. But it is also affecting the performance of the device. Actually, that is still more dangerous. Okay. Why I'm telling it's still more dangerous is in some critical surgeries, if the performance comes down, the device performance comes down. Yesterday I also told you, like we every time say the benefits or the performance of the device outweighs the risk, and hence the device can be safely used. But your statement, what you mentioned in benefit risk analysis, where your benefits are coming down, which means benefits in the sense the performance is coming down. Okay, they are not overweighing the risk. Your benefits are coming down that almost you are very close to the risk. Your benefits are very close to the risk or near to the risk. So this is what they look at. Even the device performance should not be affected. Okay, and there will be some situations where a particular parameter or particular variable, both it will be linked both with safety and performance. Okay, that is very serious. Like most of the parameters or most of when you look at the design inputs, okay, there will be you can segregate them into 2-3 columns. Like what are the ones parameter which you have taken will affect both performance and safety, exclusively on the risk or safety, exclusively on the performance, and a combination of everything, and it blows off. So you need to be very careful when you are looking at the design inputs. Okay, mainly from it should start from R&D. Okay, and the regulatory compliance. What is regulatory compliance? Mainly the regulations, what they are saying, are you compliant to that? Think of using different components for that particular device, whether you are aligning the same components, or regulatory compliance also speaks like whether your labeling, IFU or usability engineering parameters have been properly addressed, trained. Okay, the physicians has been trained on that, on the usability engineering, or whether they are following, most of them don't follow IFU, but still, any user error is not now considered as a risk. It is the risk of the manufacturer. I think I told you sometime back. Earlier, user error is not considered as a manufacturer problem or the device problem. User error is something if you use off-label or some new guy uses and he doesn't know the procedure how to use it. That's user error, and it's most from usability engineering parameter. Earlier, now user error, any risk or any damage, morbidity to the patient because mortality of the patient because of the user error. Okay, it's not the hospital or the doctor. The manufacturer has to do it. Okay, address it. You need to pay the compensation for his further surgeries. So you need to be careful. That's the problem now when you supply to tier 2 or tier 3 cities. There is always a risk of human error, or we don't call human error. We call like on emergency situations, you don't find necessary facilities to save the patient. In tier 1 cities, big corporate hospitals, we can work on if something goes wrong. In tier 2, tier 3, in tier 2 also of late, there are the hospitals for emergency treatments if something goes wrong. But in type 3, on very serious medical devices, implantables, you alone. Okay. And marketing authorization obligations, this is what we say in chapter 2. Whether your devices is authorized, whether you have an marketing authorized representative, or whether you have the license holder, or whether you have a sponsor there who is responsible taking care of your usage of that and is addressing the adverse events. He is tracking your devices, basically the traceability where it is going. And I told you this is a basic error, or not basic error. This is the worst error that happened in Europe, and that's why we are now struggling with new regulations from Europe, because there is no traceability of the devices in Europe. Okay, before this new regulations came. Of course, now they've become very strict with UDVDA and UDAMIT. So if you don't have any of this also, if you don't have marketing authorization obligations or regulations, like you need to show your agreements with the sponsor or the marketing authorized representative, whether he is holding the technical file, he is reporting to you the adverse events, he is reporting to you the traceability of the devices, live traceability. I'm talking, guys. Today, how many devices are lying, suppose in US, how many devices are lying in US, and in which hospital they are lying, what is their traceability number, batch number, expiry date, expires date, and how many devices are lying in, say, something like in Australia or Japan. That guy Okay. The sponsor or somebody marketing authorized uh, holder has to give the report. So this marketing, if you are not, see, we have seen ISO 13485. We never talked about, okay, auditing the marketing personnel or sales personnel. There are very little, just half an hour interaction auditing the marketing person. All right. Just look at what is the quotation you got and what is the serial numbers or the reports of this hospital there. They show it in Excel. That's very simple thing. But here there will be a lot of obligations on from traceability. Okay, live traceability. Today you need to show me where your devices are lying, how many are lying, and they will have online discussions, okay, with the representative lying in that 5 countries. Of course, I had this experience when one of the auditors spoke uh, with the representative in Brazil. I think it's in somewhere in Brazil. I forgot the person name. So they will have direct interaction. See, it is severity they are looking at, limited impact, systemic failures, regulatory non-compliances, device, not only device safety, device performance, regulatory compliance, marketing authorization obligation. Most of them you don't see in ISO. Okay, in the audit approach of ISO, you don't see it. So unlike ISO here, the grading level, they give grading levels. I was really surprised when I read this first time. Okay, when I was the employee of the company. When I was an employee of one company, that was how you can do grading of the NCs. But they have really done pretty well. I really appreciate how the grading has come out. Okay. MDSAP defines 5 grades, grade 1 to grade 5, where grade 5 represents the highest regulatory risk. Okay, you need to see that you won't step into grade 5. Okay. I'll tell you later if you get grade 5, what are the consequences. So the grading will be from 1 to 5. Let's see what grade 1 and grade 5, all this thing. So grade 1 could be a minor NC, grade 2 can also be a minor NC. Grade 3 are major, grade 4 are major, grade 5 are critical major NCs. So this is NC classification, this is grading. And what is the description of these grades? Okay, classification looks like 1 and 2 come under minor, 3 and 4 come under major, 5 is something so critical major NC. What is the description of this? It's like grade 1, it looked like minor NC, which similar to that of what we see in ISO. Isolated labs with no systemic failure, there could be some procedural labs or in the SOP, you didn't follow the procedure. See, the important thing is you should have the procedure. But if you don't follow the procedure, okay, that is fine. It could be taken as a minor or in ISO, we call it as observation. But if there is no procedure itself, there is no SOP for itself, that becomes very serious. Okay. So first thing is the documentation is so crucial that you should have procedures for everything. Whether it's quality system procedures, what I discussed yesterday, or your standard operating procedures or standard test procedures or your work instructions, whatever you call, you should have updated procedures, not the absolute ones. Okay. That has to be there. If you are not following some of the procedures, still it can be considered, but you need to see that there should not, direct impact if you are not following that procedure, impact on the product. But if there is no procedure itself, that will be very serious. Okay, grade 2 is repeated or multiple minor lapses. Okay. Repeated in the sense there are two things that happens here. Repeated is one, before they come for the audit, they look at all your last 3 years internal audit reports, last 3 years. They ask before they come for the audit, 3 years internal and external audit reports. Okay. And they look at what are the NCs, whether you have closed it or not closed it, how you have closed it. And suppose during their audit, if they see that this NC is repeated again, okay, or it could be multiple minor lapses. Suppose this is an isolated lapse, but in the same process, there could be multiple minor lapses. One lapse is fine, multiple minor lapses in the same process. Suppose I go to microbiology, there is some lapse in how you, or they are not following some standard regarding endotoxin. They are using Charles River for endotoxin, but they have not validated the endotoxin levels using the standard procedure. Many people use Charles River for endotoxin testing. That's more automated. But they are not validated it. That become a major, but still I don't know what could be still minor is that they have not done growth promotion test. But how you know that the virus or bacteria, fungus will grow when the media is not conducive for growth? So you need to do a growth promotion test there. It could be a minor lapse because as far as the expiry dates are concerned, if you use within the expiry dates, in whatever nutrient you do, it could be, I mean, for bacteria, or then what we call fungal fluid thioglycolate medium or soybean agar medium for bacteria, there will be growth, but still you need to show growth promotion test. Okay, that could be minor lapse. And suppose if you are not having a digital record or at least a manual record of your autoclaving process, there is another minor lapse. So this will become like grade 2. And also a repeated one. Okay, repeated non-NC. If it is the first NC, it will be grade 1. If with the same NC is reoccurring where your COPA is not effective, your VOE verification of effectiveness is not good, your RCT root cause analysis, RCA is not good, then it is what we call escalating +1. Okay, this 1 will become 2, and there is a danger it may turn into 3. That is most serious. Okay, once you enter into major, you need to take this very seriously because grade 3 is after multiple minor labs. What happens is it becomes systemic. Okay, it spreads. I already discussed without proper risk controls, it spreads through other processes. Okay, I told you example yesterday on material. You have not done the raw material verification. How can it affect the total process till the complaint? You can take a lot of examples like from design transfers. Okay, simple labeling can affect if you have done a wrong labeling on the expiry dates. Okay, or on the traceability, there could something go wrong. Simple things also can turn into systemic if there are repeated lapses of these minor things. So guys, when you are in grade 1 only, you need grade 2, you need to, I mean, take it very seriously. Okay, then either you need to totally work on the eradicating the, looking at the root cause and eradicating the total problem from the roots. Okay, do a paka corrective kappa, or you need to understand that okay, these processes has to be amended or changed into more adaptable to your system or organization. Okay, either there will be a lot of things, either you need to train people, or if they are doing the same thing again, same mistake, give them some memo or letter. That's what I used to do. But I see that it doesn't turn systemic. Okay, typical characteristics error are, this is what we find: documentation errors. Here and there, you'll have documentation errors, numbering system, that this master copy will become the other copy, absolute copies will come in. See, there won't be an absolute, that's a major one, absolute copies are used. No product impact, okay, for minor, there won't be any impact. Oh, adequate controls exist. So, though there is an error, you have controls. Okay, it's negligible. Trend of minor issues, that is what repetition of the minor issues, what we call trend. Weak implementation, no direct safety risk. Okay, there's no direct risk on safety, it is low. When it becomes systemic, okay, process not fully implemented. So there are gaps in the total procedure or in the processes, we find a lot of gaps. Risk towards compliance. So when there is risk towards a compliance for a particular activity or a particular, like I'm doing validation. Okay, I'm having some standards for doing validation, maybe some, it could be sterilization or packing or any validation, labeling. Okay, but clinical is very important. There are a lot of validations, but the most serious taken is the terminal sterilization when you have sterilization validation. Okay, that will be seriously good. Okay, suppose in that you have a lot of lapses. Okay, like there is repeated lapse, you have not updated your documents or your SOPs. Okay, and lapse in not validating the sterility system as per the protocol. First of all, you don't have a protocol, or the protocol is not as per the standard. Your SAL levels are not matching. Okay, I mean your matrix, what we call, okay, your threshold levels like SAL at not on the legal time, half cycle time is not coming well. There will be here and there some lapses. And what happens is these lapses totally contribute to the failure of sterilization. Okay, the total process of sterilization goes wrong. There could be possible, it may not go wrong. If there is a possibility that it may go wrong, still it becomes a systemic issue. Okay, weak implementation, no direct effect, sorry, yeah, systemic deficiency, process not fully implemented, risk to compliance, inadequate controls. This is the major problem. We need to have controls or checks everywhere. The QC system, the QC has to be very careful. Okay, here you say adequate controls exist, that is fine. Because you're able to restrict that at that point, okay, not moving it further in that small boundary of the process. But if you are not able to control or identify the risk at that stage, okay, that's what we call inadequate controls. So you need to step up little bit forward, and that is one of the important thing in root cause analysis is you are going to implement more controls. Okay, not the regular, you will have another control place here and there so that you identify. Okay, breakdown of QMS. This is another major NC, which is, it's a total breakdown. See, in grade 3 we said total process is a sterilization process. There is, I mean, in systemic deficiencies, a process is totally collapsed. like a sterilization process or some process or labeling or something like packing. Or even in R&D, your prototyping or your in silico systems or your validations. Okay, that's why it's told like when you have R&D in your scope, that is the biggest headache you'll have. They will, I mean, I faced this a lot of times. I was chief scientist of R&D for a lot of most of my in my career. Uh, so it's you need to speak with people where we can keep more controls, more people, more checks, so that it won't become systemic. If these processes, I said of one process, okay, if there is 2, 3 processes where there is deficiency, okay, you have some supplier evaluation or supplier process in your purchasing totally broken, no controls, sterilization, no controls, okay, your production or your QC interaction or system, no control. What happens? There are 2, 3 systems where there are no controls. Okay, systemic failure. End of the day, what happens is your total QMS will collapse. Okay, total breakdown of your QMS approach, that is grade 4. Failure to meet regulatory requirements, potential underline this, make this bold, underline this, potential product risk. Okay, the risk severity it is such a high level. It maybe if you know the risk management, you'll find say from in risk management you'll have different types how to categorize this. That's what we'll be talking in next week. From green, it is moving generally risk move from green to yellow. If you are doing the heat map, green to yellow. Green is safe, it moves to yellow, it means there is still some risk. From yellow, if they move to red, okay, this is what happening. If they move to red, it is a potential risk. There is so much of risk in that's raising a red flag. Obviously, there will be a lot of issues. Okay, the risk index will be very high, and I have faced this for implantable product where 3 patients died. Okay, within a span of 2 days, 2 months or 3 months. One in Bangalore, maybe Madan or Satyasai Hospital. It's a very good hospital. The Satyasai Hospital, one in Hyderabad hospital, and one in what is that? PGH Chandigarh. Both 3 are same issues, same potential risk. Both died. One could have been saved if he has done a bypass surgery, but there is no surgeon. It has to be done by cardiologist or cardiac surgeon. Surgeon is not available. So this is the issue. Critical, don't think of it in your lifetime that you will be in grade 5. It's almost closing your company. Severe failure affecting safety and legality. See here, legality is like you are almost moving to the legal system of court. Why this happens if there are multiple deaths? Okay, like how it happened. Yesterday I discussed with you with Abdulmati Aman and Vaibhav. The cough syrup tragedy that happened in India. Okay, multiple deaths, like 40 children died because of an adult, not it could be adulterated or they used an glycol, polyethylene glycol of some expired or different grade in the cough syrup. It caused 40 deaths of children. So when children or kids die, I feel like killing anybody. Who is responsible for that? Okay, they are so nice. I mean, children are the future. They have so much of life to see. And you are, because of your negligence, you are creating this. I'm talking of healthcare system. There are a lot of things happens outside healthcare system that people of that somebody thinks of it. But in healthcare system it happened because I have been in work worked a lot in the clinical, mainly in hospitals when I'm doing clinical trials for a lot of devices and the investigations. Mainly if you enter into pediatric wards, and I was in interventional pediatric ward where there are a lot of kids, newborn kids with a lot of heart problems, the holes in the heart. Some valves don't open up. The valves in the pulmonary valves don't open up. And for some, unfortunately, there is no cure, like you can't cure that particular disease. These are such, and there will be multiple issues that you can't address them. I mean, we can't do anything. But this systemic, I mean, critical measures is if somebody does that, if it is, it's good that India has a democracy. If it is there in some monarchy or some imperial country, and if it is there in Iraq or in North Korea, Kim Jong will shoot him. Okay, immediate risk to the patient. If it is a morbidity, simple morbidity risk that can be worked out with another surgery, fine, but still his lifestyle will change because you are causing morbidity. Product on market without compliance is very, very difficult. I told you, I think we discussed. We have placed the product in the market, it's out of the market. And when the auditor sees that it is having non-compliance, it is there in the market, then it will lead to great fine because I mean, immediately either you need to recall if it is used. Okay, by God's grace, if it is gone well, that's fine. But if it's not used, we need to recall. But either whether you recall or it is used, you will have the grade 5 when a non-compliance product enters. Okay, this is absolute regulatory violation, which means like regulatory violations of expiry dates still being in market, you don't recall them, or regulatory violations that include you have crossed your what we call regulatory validity or certification of that. Maybe you have CDSCO certification, but that expired, still you are selling them. Your CE certification for MDT expired, but still you are selling them under NDR. These regulatory violations are very high and critical and they come under grade 5. Okay, and I'll touch upon this and close. I know like Saturday is very important, but I thank you. I hope that every day will be a Saturday. I feel so relaxed on Saturday that but Sunday just passes like the flick. Okay. Wait for, I mean, not now. Earlier, I used to wait for Sundays for so long. So this is the non-conformity which I already explained. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Okay, there's some spelling mistake here. This is the first. If it happens first, okay, look at this x-axis as reoccurrence. Okay, the y-axis as the severity or the impact. Okay, if it happens first, you will get grade 1. Okay, and if it is repeated, it will go to +1, it becomes 2. You go to y-axis, this is the impact. If it is having indirect impact, it is 1, grade 1. But if it has direct impact, it comes under grade 3. Okay. See, you have to look at it. What are the clause which have indirect impact and the clause which have direct impact? You look at clause 4 is simple thing on documentation, QMS implementation. Clause 5, okay, management. Clause 6.3, mainly on the infrastructure, okay, talking mainly on the infrastructure, personal training. And clause 7, clause 7 is such an important thing, clause 8. But I'm pretty sure anything in any NC in clause 7, 8 will have a direct impact. Okay. And you totally land up in 3. And this, which has the direct impact, and the same NC repeats. Clause 7 and clause 8, you have an NC. First time they have seen an NC, it's good that it's in 3. But the same NC repeats, there's a recurrence of the same NC again escalated to 4. That is what we call repeated NC. It is escalated to 4, which has a direct impact. Indirect, it will go to 2. But already it is at 3, which has direct impact. Then it will go to 4. So you look at this y-axis as severity or impact, x-axis as the reoccurrence. Okay, remember 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is more escalation because of the reoccurrence. So the best way to control your NCs is see that there won't be any reoccurrence of your NCs. It happens first time. And the other thing is see that you work very, very effectively on clause 7 and 8 so that you won't land up in grade 3. Okay. Apart from this x-axis, y-axis on the reoccurrence on x-axis and the impact on y-axis. Okay, you remember this clause 4, 5, 6. These are basically the look at clause 7 and 8. Clause 7 is such an important thing on production, design and development, production, realization, purchasing, all this stuff. The key activities that happen are in clause 7. And clause 8 is something where you need to have measurement, monitoring, and improvement, like internal audits, non-conformities, all this stuff come in clause 8. So you see that you should do a perfect internal audit in clause, those features coming in clause 7, 8, and close and do perfect CAPA so that your NCs won't escalate, okay, to 4. If you are lying in this range, that is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, there is a repeat of this. And suppose how it can become 5, it can become 5 again if there is a reoccurrence on the same one for the next audit. Okay, so you need to be careful. Next audit, it comes that you have not closed it, again there is an NC. Okay, and it can also escalate if there is total absence of procedure. Okay, and it can escalate further. +1 if you have placed an NC device in the market. You may unknowingly would have failed because you have passed, your QC has given consent, head QA signed it, everybody signed it, but of late it is becoming so nominal that not so important, anybody can sign what we call the final QC papers or conformity assessment or COAs and COCs. It's a certificate of compliance and certificate of non-conformity. Anybody is signing? But that's right. If there is any product NC device that is in market, it will escalate, it will become 4 plus 1, 5. And if it is 5, you're landing in the self-pentable. Okay, this we discussed grade 1 to 2. Minor trends may escalate. So when it is minor, you need to be vigilant. You are the QARA guys. You need to stop them when they are minor. Okay, but if you find that there are trends of this minor coming out, which you need to be very predictive that these are going to become major later. Okay, escalate into major. Always major non-communicant require root cause kappa effectiveness verification. Grade 5 may trigger a regulatory notification. Okay, or a special audit. Then I say first you close this, all this rubbish things. Act on it, they'll give you time and they say I will come back for the special audit. And the last option left is either suspension or withdrawal of certification if you are in grade 5 NCs. Okay, better as a QRA guy, being smart and intelligent like you all guys, stop them at minor and keep monitoring them. If there are these minor trends continuing, okay, if there are minor trends or minor NCs still continuing, okay, this will accumulate, okay, and become a major thing. In the sense, you try to find some controls, risk controls, or how to stop it, some checks, QC checks or some checks. Even if it converts to a major NC also, you can address it through, okay, proper QC checks and risk controls, which you can discuss with your group or the management that you need additional manpower or additional tests that needs to be conducted, additional equipment you need. Okay, otherwise it may turn into, okay, major critical major NC. What is for us to read? You can read this. Okay, this is a structural difference between there's not much difference. Like we already seen NC categories. This major and minor is grading system. Risk evaluation is limited. This is mandatory, as I told you. You look at there is not the procedures and all this stuff. They link your NCs directly to risk and to the patient. Regulatory impact, indirect, is a regulatory impact, I told you again. They link to your regulations, like even UMDR or ENIS, whatever. It's a direct and explicit. Patient safety, they look at patient safety as well as the patient safety focus, but they directly don't link it, or explicitly they don't link. It is implicit. Okay, but here it is explicit. The main driver, primary driver is the patient safety focus. Escalation logic is left to auditor judgment whether you can escalate, you can do it. Generally, most auditors in ISO won't escalate the NCs, but this is perspective, okay, based on what we have read, how the escalation can be done, reoccurrence, direct impact, okay, side, no procedures, total system collapse, okay, or a total process collapse or total breakdown of the QMS, okay, grade 5, something absolutely rubbish. Okay, you can map this, how grade 1 will be. I'll share this document with you. Minor NC isolated, this we discuss grade 2, how this can escalate to grade 5. I also gave some examples. I think this is the best example. Like escalation rules. I discussed on escalation rules. Okay. I'll discuss this maybe next, because this gives you also how you, suppose if you have if you are going for MD SAP certification, how you should audit stepwise, how you will be auditing. I'll give you a step by how MD auditors determine this final NC grading, or step by step how they do this. This will be interesting. So it will be like a training for you on even the auditing approach, like how you audit MD SAP. Suppose if you are going for MD SAP certification, or already if you have an MD SAP, how we will do the internal audits in MD SAP. Okay, this I'll discuss next class. And I'll also give you one example. With this I'll close. How they do, say copper records exist. This already we discussed, but see how the grading goes. Copper records exist, but the effective checks are not performed. See here the NC is, you have a complaint, there is a root cause, they have done the copper. But the effectiveness of the copper is not checked. What we call verification of effectiveness in ISO we have checked, it is called VOE. They have not checked. So auditor evaluation is requirement. What is the requirement? ISO, as per ISO 1348 clause 5.4.2. Nature, copper implemented but ineffective. Impact, risk reoccurrence not controlled. Regulatory exploration violated. Grading matrix applied grade 4. So what is that it made to grade 4? This is, as I said, if it come under clause 8, what is the grading if it is come under clause 8? What is the grading of NC if it is come under clause 8? Yeah. I said any clause 7 will clause 8 will have a direct impact on the product. So the grading will be grade 3. Okay, I think you are not following. I better will close this. Okay, take care guys. See you tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, next week.